What's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal Max Show, a rare Sunday stream early in the day. I got to go into work later today, and I just know that it's going to be kind of a crazy work week for me. Paperwork would have, so wanted to get a stream in here for about an hour before I leave for work. I hope you're all having a fantastic beginning of your week. My week was amazing here. Really enjoyed my Friday, Saturday. My niece came over. She's 9. She's like my son, who's four's best friend. And so he had his first sleepover. We had a lot of fun. We made our own pizzas, and then they buried me in giant stuffed animals that we have. We watched SpongeBob. We watched a bunch of other kids' movies, played with Play-Doh. It was a lot of fun. So, good times. And then I go into work here later today. I have to be there by 3 o'clock, and I'll be working straight through till Wednesday. Streaming is going to be tough for me this week because Wednesday we are driving to Akron, Ohio, me and my family, for a little mini vacation. We're going to go see the live in person Wild Kratts, which is a PBS show. They kind of work with zoo animals and stuff. So we're going to do that Thursday. And then Friday, we'll be leaving the hotel in Akron there, and we'll be going to the Akron Zoo if weather cooperates. And then I come back into work Saturday. So we'll see. I'll try to do some mobile stuff on the phone, but this will probably be the last stream from my computer that you'll see. Like I said, I'll still try as this week goes on to stream to YouTube exclusively with the old phone. So, anyways, let's jump right in today because we only have an hour. I saw this sort of debate raging online. Figured I haven't really talked about it much. And something I would weigh in on, and it's this question of AI art and should we use it? Is it screwing over artists? What is ethical obligations and these sorts of things? I thought it was worth jumping in to talk about it. Akron sucks. Hey man, Akron's like a huge city to me. Go see the Zips when you live in a rural area, you know. But I will enjoy it. So, uh, would AI art also apply to deepfakes? Sure, I guess. Come see the Hall of Fame. It sucks too. I'll probably get there someday when my son's a little older. But as for right now, it's like, ugh. So, yeah. So, questions of AI art. Let's start with this. I've had sort of conversations in the past, a little bit on the show when it came to someone wanted to debate me once on the writer strike, and it sort of part of the writer strike, a big part of it actually had to do with writers wanting studios to agree not to use AI for writing or for art. The reason being because they're sort of unionized and they want to prevent these big studios that give these high paying gigs to people that are using AI or to just allow to use AI because it'll actually cut out a lot of people. I happen to know people in, I don't know how to put this. I don't know anyone in Hollywood, but I do know people who work on television shows and movies, particularly here locally in Pennsylvania when they would be filming stuff. And the one guy I know, he does things like set design. So he worked on the show Mindhunter, for example, which is a fantastic show. For one scene, he had to build 32 window unit air conditioners because that's a period show. And so it takes place in like the 70s. And so they had to make this hotel look like it was a 1970s hotel. So he took wood and made it look like they were these air conditioner units that they could put all through these windows. And he was working on this for like a long time. And then told me when the scene was finally shown like on Netflix, it's like a 5 second scene. He put all this work into what basically came out to 5 seconds. But so I know him. I know one other person that worked doing something on a set of television shows and movies. And I know an awful lot of artists. So I'm someone who was drawn to people that I was sort of like minded with sometimes, but that also were good at things that I weren't. It's something weird. So, for example, I'm a pretty good debater, I'm a pretty good public speaker, but certainly in debate, there were people better than me. And I wasn't that impressed by that because I'm kind of like, well, yeah, you're better than me. And I understand that it's skillful and hard work and all of that. but I could kind of do what you do, just slightly, well, not slightly, but just not better. But like, if I had a friend that was like a painter that was going to school for painting, you might objectively be like, see one of these paintings and be like, it's an okay painting, but it's never a painting that's going to sell for tens of thousands of dollars. It's just an okay painting. But to me, I was amazed by that because I'm terrible with art. And so I ended up, when I went to university, undergrad, basically I had three groups of friends: those that I still knew from high school, those that were I met on the debate team, and those that were in the art department. And I hung out with the art department people. I mean, I used to get drunk with them like 2, 3 times a week. And I would just go watch them paint or whatever art projects they were working on. My roommate was an artist. And so I came to respect it. In fact, the hardest class I ever took in college was an art history class. Because I know nothing of art history. I just took the class because I was friends with all the people that had to take this class. They breezed through it. But for me, like, they're showing you, okay, they'll show you a painting for the test. What style is this? I'm like, and all my friends are like, oh, it's clearly impressionist. I'm like, what is that? So it was a tough class for me, but I actually learned a lot in it. And I respected that professor wasn't the type of dude that was just giving everyone an A. Like, I had to work harder to get a C in that class than any class I took in college. And that's what I got. I got a C, and I was very proud of that C, because I don't know anything about the art world. So having said all of that, I understand. I'm not coming at this from a place just because I'm not an artist. I'm not selling any pictures, anything like that. I have a lot of good friends that do that sort of stuff. So I just wanted to give a little background into where I'm coming from on this conversation. Even my little logo, a good friend of mine, he does like graphic design. Let me show you this. That was made by a good friend of mine. And he has several jobs, but part of his job was website design, graphic design, etc. So there are people I'm connected to that make a living through various forms of art that AI will be able to have an effect on. Now, Semper Tech says it goes far beyond just art. Of course, I can't even imagine 20 years where we'll be through AI. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that could be coming down the pipe, but just talking sort of right now and on the precipice of what we could see when it comes to art in the next 2 to 5 years, what's that going to mean? What will it be capable of doing? You could see, for example, if you go to the AI, you remember there were all these creepy videos of like Will Smith eating spaghetti. The AI videos were creating, they were like super like creepy, didn't look good at all. Now it's within a year, it's so much better. And within 2 years from now, it might be indistinguishable from actual video of someone eating spaghetti. Kurt's Corner for $10 says, Rob, these people are the most pretentious people on earth. It's a blessing miracle that it's easier for AI to draw a painting than it is for it to change a tire. What did they say? Learn to code. Well, we'll talk about that, Kurt. We will. So, what do you do now when you have art at your fingertips through ChatGPT, through Grok, any of these other AI programs? I'm going to mispronounce this, but the reason this story came up this week was there is I believe it's Japanese art Studio Ghibli. I've seen their art before, and it's got this very, I don't know. I could look up a picture if you want. We'll see. But you've seen these memes that are going around. The style of artwork they do, and they're taking like famous, I don't know if famous is the word, but like memes and changing them into art based on this studio. So let's find some good ones. I misspelled it. That was what was going on there. I can tell it's Sunday here. Should be a day off. Like we'll just scroll through these real quick so you can see, in case you've missed this. So there's Biden sniffing a kid's hair. That bad meme. But you get the point. Here's Ben Affleck. Some scenes that you've seen, the memes that you've seen. There's a lot that they're doing with, there's George Floyd, Trump. So, I mean, you can see that this raises this question where you had apparently this studio, the guy who founded this studio doesn't like AI. And so you have all these people like, this is ridiculous. These artists, this is ridiculous. How dare this sort of stuff be going on? You're taking money out of the pockets of artists. So let's talk about it. First thing to say is Ghibli. There we go. I was pronouncing it wrong. Kurt's Corner says these people are the most pretentious people on earth. Not wholly. No group is universal. For example, believe it or not, I could find you liberal welders or liberal people that work on oil rigs. Now, in general, you would say, oh, welder, sort of conservative dude, and that's true in general, but we don't have to do that. We're smarter than all the other audiences. We get, it's not universal. No matter what, I'll start off saying this. Anytime that new technology comes along and starts to make people's jobs obsolete or less important, I do feel bad for those people. But also, I don't know that we should artificially constrain that technology to ensure that those previous people don't lose their job. Now, art's a little different because the purpose of art has some non-practical meaning, right? So it's like, if we're talking about welding, right? And you could say, well, I got a friend that was trained to weld on this particular type of job, right? And he was making $35 an hour doing just working in a plant, welding this one piece of metal for this one product, let's say an automobile. But now they created some machine that does that. And so my friend and all 20 of his buddies that did that at this job, they got fired. Now it's just this machine. You feel bad for those people that got fired. But you might say, but the cost now of the manufacturing of this automobile, we've decreased it by 3% because we don't have to hire all these specialized employees that do this thing. And that as long as it's just as safe, whatever, who cares, right? Art would be slightly different because it's like, well, the value is not that you're building this thing that you're practically using. The value is in the artisticness of it. There's intrinsic value in sort of what it makes you feel. That's the idea behind art. In general, this is a generality. We'll get to why that's not the case for everything. Kurt's Corner says, I'm a welder. I can confirm there are no liberal welders today. Well, I'm sure they've burnt themselves out of the job or something, quite literally. Nonetheless, so you could say, well, Rob, it's not quite the same because there's soul. Art requires soul to be put into it. And there's no soul in AI art. And while I will concede that there's a small part of that that's true, the thing that makes art great to all of us, and I don't just mean pictures or paintings or sculptures, but even like a movie, a song, what do you personally get out of it? And it's like this great debate. I used to argue with my artistic friends. If you see a painting, right, and a famous painting, and you don't know anything about it, like if you see the Mona Lisa, and what you get out of that is, that reminds me of my mom on her wedding day. And she passed away 3 years ago. And so when I look at the Mona Lisa, it makes me feel great because that's what it reminds me of. And then someone was to tell you, actually, no, art historians say that this was actually a very sad woman. This wasn't a happy woman on her wedding day. There's sadness behind her eyes. And does it matter to you? Yeah, there's value in knowing what the artist intended and what they were trying to say, but still mostly what you're getting out of it's what you yourself get out of it. And that's somehow more important to the individual than what the artist was trying to say. And we see this occur daily. For example, what is Paul Vanderhoven? Isn't he the guy that did the movie of Starship Troopers? All the time this pops up on social media where they're like, well, actually, the director, I think it was Vanderhoven, actually, you weren't supposed to resonate with the humans. They were supposed to be fascist. But you still do resonate. His intention to make them the bad guys doesn't work for most people. Most people got something else out of it. Paul Verhoeven. Okay, I said Vanderhoven. There we go. And so, like, this whole question of AI art doesn't have soul. Maybe at the high level of artists, maybe you're one of the world's top 100 painters, and you look at the AI art and you say, I could tell that this doesn't have a soul because you know you have an eye to tell when this is AI and when it isn't. Moonlight, thanks for the $5. Says you can create metaphors and hypotheticals so quickly for what your position is. That's something I noticed that separates you from others. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So right now we're at a point where most AI art, even the layman, if you really look, would be able to figure it out. Like there'll be two fingers melded together, or a third arm appearing around someone, or the feet are weird, or something like that. But the truth is, most people aren't consuming most art that they see in a very deep way. Let's take pictures out of it, paintings, comic. Let's take that out for a second. How about music? How many times have you heard a song and it makes you feel something? But then maybe dozens of times you've heard the same song. And then one day, for whatever reason, you start really listening to it and listen to the lyrics. And it turns out, oh, wow, this seems to be portraying something completely different than what I was getting from the feeling of it. It's like a song that quickly comes to mind where did you ever hear the song Hey Ya by Outkast, Andre 3000? Now, my understanding is he intentionally created the song for this purpose. He wanted it and the music video of it to feel like this sort of upbeat, hey, we're having fun, we're dancing, this is great. It's a real upbeat song, right? But when you listen to the lyrics, what he's singing about's like, we need to break up this relationship. Yeah, most Japanese pop music is like that, right? But the truth is, what percentage of people that listened to the song Hey Ya when it was on the top 20 or whatever were deeply thinking about the meaning of it? Yeah, the Obadiah Parker cover, it is real good. Most people they're sort of passively consuming the art to some level. You see a movie poster. Well, that looks cool. No, most movie posters today, I think they've lost a lot of their charm. You're not really looking well, are the proportion of the fingers correct to the proportion of the head? Well, actually, that actor, it seems like they made him 7 inches taller here on the poster. What's up with that? That's not the way that you would shoot that gun, right? Their hands in the off position. That wouldn't be the safest or the most effective way to use it. No, most people aren't consuming it that way. Even I see debate, and I have random stuff pop up on my X all the time. So this show Invincible, I always see stuff popping up. I've seen the first season of Invincible. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good show, apparently based on a comic book. And you'll see all these people that are like, well, the animation sucks. The animation Invincible sucks. And then when I watch them explain oh, look, the frame rate's low or whatever, I'm like, okay, yeah, I see it. I see what the complaint is. But never once when I watched that season before I read anything about it did it cross my mind. Never once. I was never like, oh, this animation could be way better. I Once someone explained it to me, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Look, they're cutting corners here that, yeah, I can't speak to anything but the first season, but I liked it. I thought that it subverted expectations in the first episode by having, spoiler alert, for the season 1 of Invincible, the first episode, the big twist is that the big Superman type character, that's the main character's dad, he's like the world's strongest superhero, and he's on like an Avengers type team or a Justice League type team. He kills the rest of the Justice League because it turns out he's not a good guy. He's from an alien race. Imagine if Superman came to Earth, but instead of just accidentally falling here and then protecting Earth, he was sent here by the Kryptonians with the plan of becoming like the world's greatest superhero and then taking over the world. That's basically the plot of Invincible. And his name's Omni-Man, yeah. Uh, so, but the point I'm trying to make is even taking AI out of the equation, most people aren't consuming art at this deep level. Most of the art that you see day to day, and ironically, as much as this might piss off many of the anti-AI art people, most of the art you're consuming and most of the art that people are getting paid for isn't deep shit. It's like, hey, I need a logo for my online business where I sell knickknacks. I need someone to design the front page of my website. I need someone to make a 10-second jingle for the radio for my pizza shop. Right? Even when we were talking about the writer's strike and like why you shouldn't use AI for writers or artists, it's not the people at the top that are necessarily to be worried about. AI art, like, it's AI art's not going to replace, a famous artist like Banksy. Harbognar, thanks so much for the $5. It says Invincible season 3 was great. Conquest voiced by Keegan from Walking Dead. Invincible is voiced by Glenn from Walking Dead. Rematch of the century. I do not have any butter dishes, so Jeremy Scott says industrial art done by artists is just that. Those people were always working to out themselves out of work. I fail to see what that has to do with actual art. Maybe, but yeah, I'll give you an example. My roommate that was an artist, he made these paintings that were really dark and sculptures and stuff too. And I enjoyed them. For me, like I was such a layman with art, and I'm still like this to an extent. I'm sorry, it's just what I am. Like a lot of abstract art and stuff, I'm like, even if there's objectively talent to it, I don't get it most of the time. But if I see someone paint a picture of someone that looks just like them in real life, that looks like a photograph, I'm like, that's amazing. That is unbelievable. Yes, I understand that there's a level beyond that where you're conveying emotion, conveying a bunch of things behind the scene. But to me, like hyper realistic art or even art that's not hyper realistic, but that you could just tell that it's not super abstract. Like that's the sort of stuff I was personally impressed by. And my friend though did a lot of he could do that. He could make good art that I subjectively was like, yes, that's good. That looks like what you're trying to convey. But he also added a lot of abstract to it. Now I thought it was amazing. I thought his art was amazing. But he's in rural Pennsylvania. And so he's trying to make money. So he'll go to these art shows with like, this painting was inspired to me by Rwandan genocide or the Irish famine. And here's the painting. And it's this dark, he ain't selling that. Then you know what he did? Someone talked him into doing that all of a sudden he started making money. Started painting paintings of Pittsburgh Steelers. And here's Ben Roethlisberger. Here's Troy Polamalu. They look damn good. Guess what? Those were selling $150, $200, $250. And it pissed him off because as an artist, he didn't want to be just doing, pictures of Pittsburgh Steelers. But around here, with the type of people that were seeing his art, that's what worked for him. The nature of art, a lot of it is if you're doing exactly what you want to do, you may have difficulty. A very small percentage of artists that are doing that actually keep to get doing that and make a living doing it, or an even smaller percentage becoming extremely famous or wealthy. Most artists are doing things that if it was up to them, they probably wouldn't be doing. You think the guy that designs the logo for the tackle shop, that's what he would have been doing? If probably not. Right? Like, you think the person that designed the furniture store jingle would have been writing furniture store jingles if they were independently wealthy? And probably not. Thanks, Tanner S. I appreciate that, man. I really do. Spiro, we'll talk about this. Remind me of this. So when AI art comes around, it's those people that are going to be replaced first. You don't really have to have a soul to create the furniture store jingle, to create the logo for the pizza shop. And I do feel bad for those artists. But most people aren't consuming art at this extremely deep level. Most of the art they're seeing. But what's the solution? It's inevitable. It's already here. And I hear people say, yeah, but it's crap. They can't even, the arms are all screwed up. The hands are all screwed up. Well, one, it's going to get better. And second, people just won't give a shit. So, I used to watch this show. Has anyone seen this show? It's called Ink Master. Has anyone ever seen this? It used to be ran by, what was his name? From Jane's Addiction. I can't think of his name. But basically, the point of the show is each season has like 12 tattoo artists, and each week they eliminate one. And they have them do a bunch of contests. I think it's an amazing show. And again, from a layman on art, to watch these tattoos that these people would come up with, like 80% of the tattoos, I would be like, that is phenomenal. That is absolutely phenomenal. I can't pick anything wrong with that. And then you would have the judges like, well, if you look up here in the top third, notice the scale on the dragon. You could see one row of the scales is like slightly misshapen. And then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I see that. Or, you look at the perspective of where the lighting source would be, and look how the shadow's wrong here. That's the sort of stuff, sometimes more egregiously than that, the AI art's messing up. But when I see a human mess that up, 99% of the time, I never notice it. Yes, an expert in art or someone who's looking at it like, oh, I'm really trying to go through this with a fine-tooth comb, they might see it, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the average person is more into it than me. But if the average person's like me, I don't notice it most of the time. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's cool. That looks badass. Maybe if it was put in my arm and I'm staring at it every day, I'd be like, wait a minute. But just to see it in passing, it's like, wow. So you see all these people, like one of the things you see is like, oh, people are putting these Studio Ghibli art up, and what you see it all over social media. And every time you put AI art, that's ridiculous. That's taking money out of someone's pocket. Who was going to pay someone for that? Were you going to pay someone $100 to create you a comic book looking picture of Trump getting shot in the ear? Probably not. Or of JD Vance's head getting bigger? Probably not. But because it's basically free and at your fingertips, you're like, sure, I'll put that picture out there. And that's the other thing. It allows people that elsewise didn't have the skill to do these sorts of drawings, songs, whatever, or the money to hire someone. It allows them to have access to this sort of material. I remember my old debate partner, when he went off to grad school, His dissertation was on photography. And he does not, at least back then, he did not consider digital photography to be photography. Because to him, photography had to do with the chemical process of developing film. And because digitally that's not occurring, it is not photography. I believe that was the argument he was making. If you go back to the advent of cameras and photography, I'm sure that when it existed, one of the arguments was from artists of the day, but this will take jobs away from portrait painters. And they're right, it would. Then when you had people like, I remember growing up, my aunt's boyfriend was one of these guys that had like the photography studio that would go to your school, and he would take, the yearbook photos for everyone. And once a year we'd go to his shop and he would have all the cool backdrops and, we'll put this backdrop so it looks like you're in front of like a forest, and then he'll take these pictures and stuff. I'm quite certain that the access to cell phones with quality cameras in them have been a huge detriment to that line of work. But what's the alternative? That we just are like, wow, we shouldn't. You're selling out if you're taking photos on your camera. You need to go to the guy whose job it was. You screwed over. That's not the same. You don't have the same eye for photography as that guy did. So for you to take your vacation photos yourself, wow, that really screwed those businessmen out of work. Yeah, I guess. And then there's the position of, I'm admitting to you, many of these artists are my friends, or many of my friends are artists, let me put it that way. And many of the ones are cool. Some were conservatives, Trump voters, tired of the lefties bullshit. But an awful lot that I've met thought it was absolutely fucking hilarious when I had friends that worked at things like coal mining that were losing jobs. Learn to code, they said. Okay. How'd those Hollywood writers in the writer's strike, how do you think they felt when my town of Clarion, Pennsylvania lost the bottle factory that was here? So there was Owens, Illinois was the name of the plant. It was the biggest employer in the area. And it made glass bottles for like beer bottles and stuff. They went out of business. Right before that, the place right across the road was called R&S Metals. They made windows. That's where my dad worked for like 14 years of his life. They went into work on a Tuesday and were told to pack their stuff up. They had to be out by Friday. So this area where I live, and before that, down the road a little, near 20 minutes away, near the town where I grew up, all of the surrounding, not all of them, but many of the surrounding towns around there, kilns were big business. So they'd make different types of bricks and different like things of that nature. You could drive through town. Someday I'm going to do it. I'm going to drive through this one particular town, St. Charles. It's incredible. It's like a ghost town. It's just like the vegetation has now come up over these. When I say factory, don't get it twisted. This is like our little rural town. So it wasn't like a factory employing like 10,000 people or something. But it would be like a place that was employing probably 100, 150 people. And the vegetation has just grown over it because this place has been basically out of work since the 80s. A lot of places that did steel and stuff like that here in Western Pennsylvania, same thing. Where were the artists? You think they gave a shit? How many of these artists complaining about, well, if you use AI art, you're taking money out of our pockets? How many of them shop at Amazon or at Walmart instead of going to the local grocer or the local farmer's market? Isn't that, in effect, doing the same thing? Well, but it's more convenient. It's cheaper. Exactly. Right. I don't know, Crazy for Coke. You think the conversation's just going in a circle? Would you like to call in? It's just going into a circle. I apologize. The conversation isn't good enough for you? Clearly, your channel's massively successful, and your points on this topic will be quite linear and not circular, correct? I mean, you seem to be someone who really, really would have your points down on this, right? Don't get flamed. Do I sound like I'm too upset? Lol. By the way, this is one of my favorite type of people. Talk shit on you, and then you jab back, and they're like, whoa, whoa, man, you upset there. Whoa, 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 whoa. I hit a nerve. No, you didn't hit a nerve. I think my show's better when talentless fucks like you chime in with some sort of criticism, and then when I ask you if you would like to participate, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So thanks. Well, talking shit, I guess, would be a colloquial term for having a pointed criticism, to which I offered a pointed criticism back, and then you said that I was getting flamed. Anyways, continuing. Everybody wants to sort of, when it comes to any sort of advance in technology, it's human nature to feel bad for the people whose careers will be affected because of this advance in technology. But most people are unwilling themselves to make personal sacrifices to try to help the person who's being affected in their career. And even if they did, it would be in vain anyways. Everybody, like, all the time I hear people talk like, oh, we need to stop going to the big box stores. Everybody should shop locally. I agree. But then what do? I'm in a hurry. Stop at Walmart real quick. Everything I need is right there. We need batteries the other day at home. I needed batteries. What did I do? I went to Amazon, ordered batteries, deliver it right to my door. Could I have went? Well, no, I couldn't now. There used to be a mom and pop shop out the way, but Dollar General got put in next to it and it put them out of business. It's easy to pontificate about, well, this is what should happen. But then when it costs you more time, energy, and money, you're like, that's how everyone else should do it. The truth is, when technology, not just AI, but when technology seemed like it was going to replace a bunch of blue collar work, a lot of the people in the academic class thought that was hilarious. Ha ha, oh well. Truck drivers. That's one of the things I heard during the trucking protest up there in Canada. Well, someday we'll just have self-driving cars and they'll be replaced. I wouldn't be so sure. I think there'll always be a place for people working in the shipping industry. But maybe you're right. But the truth is, what people couldn't envision is a lot of that blue collar work is always going to be cheaper and more efficient to have human beings involved. Like, for example, you could have 3D printed houses. But what is the ability for that machine that could do a 3D printed house to be able to do that over and over again on location, etc.? And is that going to help you if you just need a repair on your home? Probably not. You're going to send a worker out to do that. Now, again, this can change in the future as technology advances, but this hit blue collar areas first. When we had advancements in farm technology that made it so if you used to need 10 people to run a farm around here, now you only need 3. Well, that's 7 people that lost that job. When you had assembly lines that all of a sudden, because of the technology in assembly lines, it made it where maybe for a particular product, like let's say to make a couch, it used to require 20 people for the output necessary. Now you could do it with 2 people. The artsy type people, the academic type people, many of them sneered. Ha! It's not going to affect us. The irony is, many jobs that even 10, 15 years ago, people would have thought technology can't replace, like art, here we are. They can actually, my prediction is, it's probably sooner than this. This isn't a bold prediction. Within 10 years, we will be able to have what looks like indistinguishable video from a videotape of a person of famous actors and actresses completely acting a part. So if you want a new James Bond movie with 1965 Sean Connery, you'll probably be able to do it. Now, you would have to get the rights from Sean Connery's family or whatever. But we'll get to that point. But you'll probably still need someone selling popcorn at the movie theater. What's a doctor really do? In effect, a doctor is just, and you can see it. Like, I've met doctors like this. You're like, is this dude even human? Seems like a robot. Yeah, because what a good doctor's doing, basically, now you hope that they have bedside manner, etc. But what they're basically doing is getting a bunch of data points. Okay, what are your symptoms? What are your vitals? Then they have this knowledge base of what all of this could mean. And then they have a knowledge base of what the answer is. It's sort of like an equation. You take all these variables, you put it into a function, which is the doctor, it spits out the answer. We may get to a point where we don't need a lot of doctors. But you'll need nurses. You'll need the human element. So it was particularly hard for me during the writer's strike, and again here now, for a bunch of people that would laugh if my friend they advocate for policies that would put my friends out of work that work in like the oil industry. They think they're evil, terrible people. And then simultaneously they're like, oh, but it would be a shame if we lose our jobs. Yeah, I agree. I still feel bad for you. I do. But what's the alternative? It's inevitable. I mean, what are you going to do? Outlaw it? You can't do that. So then what's the next step? Publicly ridicule and shame people? It's not going to happen. You could try. The best you could do is ridicule and shame other people that are like-minded with you or maybe in the industry. Or you could say, we refuse to work with anyone who uses AI, etc. And right now, that will be a detriment to high-end projects. So, for example, if a movie studio, say if, I don't even know, the Marvel cinematic universe, if all of the writers, the CGI people, etc. on it said, if you use AI, all of us will refuse to work for you, that would be of a detriment to their product, which has sucked lately anyways, is my understanding. But that would be of detriment to it. Now, but will it be 10 years from now? I don't know. And still, what will happen will be, even if you could, the higher end stuff that's spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, if you could unionize and convince them, you're not going to convince the guy with the YouTube channel. You're not going to convince someone like me that, hey, if I went out there and got a logo and I had an option of, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I have the option of either going and typing in a prompt myself into an AI and then getting 20 picture options, or hiring someone for like $100. Spiro says, you don't think we'll get to the point where we can make a movie with Sean Connery? Connery's trajectory of coder skill and energy requirements will greatly limit how good it gets, and it might get worse yet. I don't know. You could be right. I can't claim to be an expert in this, but I think we'll be shocked at how effective things get 20 years from now. Moonlight for $5. Thanks so much. Says, can I briefly talk about what's going on in the UK about white males getting worse sentences, 2-tier sentence? I was going to talk about that hopefully tomorrow. Was one of the shows I wanted to do this week, but I'll talk about it briefly here. We got 15 more minutes. The other thing that's going to happen with AI is, yeah, Sneed McFeed says, I use AI coding assistance and completion at work already. And Sparky says it'll replace coders eventually, maybe. But the other thing to talk about is how this will open up so many opportunities for people that elsewise wouldn't have been able to afford or have the talent to be in these sorts of things. Like, again, I don't know shit about coding or anything like that, but I grew up in a time when, like, I liked video games I was born in 1984. So the first video game system that I played and remember was the regular Nintendo Entertainment System, right? And then from there, Super Nintendo, Sega. I was never really a PC gamer or anything like that. So that's basically what I knew of games. And I remember playing games like Mortal Kombat. And when you would beat the game, whether it be at the arcade or on the Sega or Super Nintendo or whatever, you would see the credits would roll. And there'd be like 12 people that worked on that game. Now, if you have a Mortal Kombat game, I mean, there's probably 1,000 people that worked on that game. What would happen if AI could lower the burden on a lot of that? It could do a lot of the art direction. Or for me, this is just something I thought of. Do you ever notice, like, when you're playing like an open world type game or a role playing game or something like that, there'll be like let's say you're playing Skyrim, right? And Skyrim will have all these villages, but it's hard to get immersed in the game if the villagers seem like not real people, like they're stilted. Like it used to be back in the days of like the Super Nintendo, whatever. If you played a role playing game, they would actually have like the same sprite and animation for like everyone that was the weapon shop guy or the item shop guy. It was they just reused. They'd all say the same thing, you know. What if now through AI you could literally just instead of having to get voice acting and programming for thousands of non-playable characters, you had an AI that was capable of making them sound unique, but it only took one or two people working on that as opposed to hundreds or thousands. Then you could make a game closer to Skyrim with a much smaller studio on a much smaller budget than Bethesda does. Yeah, Morrowind does have AI voice modes, yeah. So there's potential for people using this and putting out products that are more enjoyable to people because they wouldn't have had access to efficient enough technology to be able to do these sorts of things. Lord of the Nerds for $5 says this is the tip of the iceberg stuff. People need to seriously think about what humans will start offloading morality to AI like we now do art. Yeah, I mean, there's questions like that. So ultimately, I do feel bad that there will be people that lose jobs. I do, from the bottom of my heart. But there's several caveats to that. One, there could be benefits that come with this. There'll be people that have access to things that elsewise they wouldn't have. Lord of the Nerds for $2. Do I think AI will be more consistently moral? I don't know. Probably not. Right, so that's number one. Moonlight says for $5, thank you. Says can't wait to hear AOC start screaming the AI deserves human rights in about 10 years. Right. So it could open up access to people that otherwise didn't have access to this sort of stuff, AI art. Number two, it's inevitable. There's nothing you could do to stop it, even if you wanted. So you might as well learn to embrace it. And third, many of the people that are involved in art tend to be the sort of people that told people in my areas of life to learn the code when they were losing their jobs. So why should we give a shit? Hopefully we can make an AI that can predict when people will become criminals. They've made several movies about that. Hard Bargnard, thanks for the $5. Appreciate it. Says, before I leave for work, what's your opinion on red states expected to gain more seats? Bill Maher talked about it on his show. Yeah, I mean, if they do the census correctly, the truth is they screwed up the last census. And so actually it ended up, I think, screwing over 2 or 3 seats that would have went from blue states to red states because they whoopsie-daisied the census. So I guess it all depends on who's in charge when the census gets done. And do you think that people that are involved in the census office tend to be pro-establishment or anti-establishment? So if they tend to be pro-establishment, then they're probably going to do as much as possible to mitigate that as much as possible and have another oopsie in the census this time. But yeah, hypothetically, states that are more red-wing red right now stand to gain, what is it, like 5 to 7 seats or something like that. Now, we have this election coming up in Wisconsin where they're going to try to gerrymander. If the Democrat wins here in Tuesday for this judge seat, they're going to gerrymander it so the Democrats get 2 additional seats in that state alone, which will happen. So yeah, hypothetically, red places should get more. 2 things to say about it. Well, 3, what I already said. Second, just because the state's red now doesn't mean that they'll continue to be red. Remember, Florida was purple. Now it's one of the reddest states. So we just have to see directionally the way things change. And then the third thing to say is all of it's irrelevant anyways. If you get bad red people, some of the reddest states have the absolute most dog shit senators and Congress people because no one takes primaries seriously. But yeah. So, anyways, when it comes to people memeing and stuff on X that want to put memes up, I don't really give a shit that they're using AI. I think that there are people I saw these ironic things. Like I saw this guy that was complaining about it, and then this guy's like entire feeds just taking him taking like 30-second clips of TV shows and making memes with that. So like they'll take a scene in Sopranos where they're shooting someone and killing someone, and he'll put that clip up. And it's like it really is like I understand the other side of the coin. Like in general, doesn't it seem like as a society, when it comes to things like this, like social media presence, etc., we're rewarding people that are lower effort, that are more clickbaity? Is it right? As a streamer, if I was super low effort and I just wanted to come on here every day and be like, it's the Zionist. Everything Trump does is the best. Everything Trump does is the worst. My channel would be bigger. You stick with one topic and you run with it no matter what, and you're shameless about it. Isn't that the model? When you see like your Ian Miles Chungs, your Krasensteins, your Harry Sissons, isn't that what they're doing? And it works. They're crushing it. How many people do you see on places like X that sometimes it makes it like you don't even want to bother scrolling through X, that'll just do the most low effort shit? You'll see the same clips. Oh, check this fight out at this high school. You see the same clip every other week. And it's always like 7 big accounts that are putting it up as once. Top 10 falls in baseball. You won't believe number 6. What does this make you think of? And it'll put a video up. This was one of the best movies on Netflix. And then they don't put the title of the movie. I even see, like, I'm the type of person, because I drive a lot and work, and I do a lot at work where we're not in front of a TV. So me and my client aren't in front of the TV. And like YouTube and places like that have been a godsend, because maybe the person I'm working with is like, hey, I want to see, I want to see cool dinosaurs. Bam. You put a video up on YouTube of like dinosaurs and stuff, neat stuff. I can't tell you just in the past month how much more I've noticed AI voices. So you'll click on a video, it'll be like, why Saruman turned to the dark side. All right, click on this. And then it's this super stilted AI voice. You're like, you couldn't even take the time to write your own script. And it'll do shit like it'll repeat itself. You could tell that it was written by an AI. But it doesn't matter. Because if you're that dude who owns that channel, you're just like, I got it all figured out, man. Have the AI write it. I'll give the AI a topic. It writes the script. I put it through a voice thing. Bam. Then I put it through an AI that'll do pictures based on the words that's being said. And this shit, to me, it seems like it's blown up in the past 3-4 months. And so I get it. Like, and I do, there's part of me, but I don't know how to stop it other than people just get annoyed. Maybe you could say the algorithm on these places should start de-emphasizing people that are using AI. Well, but people learn how to manipulate the algorithm. Do you ever wonder why Mr. Beast has this face in every thumbnail? There's a whole generations of kids growing up that think this is a smile. It's like, Stank Jesus for $5, thanks. Says, here's for staying consistent, man. It's nice to have a political streamer who stays consistent, even at the detriment of their own channel. Much love. Thank you. I try. I'm sure I've been hypocritical on things in the past, but I try my best. AI, Stabby McStabwood says, you're just getting exposed. AI movie recaps have been around for years. It's likely foreigners making bank building kingdoms in third world countries off the U.S. ad revenue they get. Maybe I'm just now noticing now because the algorithm of what I'm viewing Spiro says, I've been over the academic studies on this on my streams live free, and I'm a programmer of 25 plus years. AI has serious limits and literally fails on huge areas of minor complexity. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Like I'm saying, I could notice when I hear something that's AI, like doom scrolling or whatever, like they were saying, that you're like, yeah, this sucks. Of course, I am Rob GPT, so part of me has to defend the AIs to some extent, right? Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We'll see where it's at in 5 years, though. I don't know. Oh, Stank Jesus says, thanks so much for the $2. Been following me since the Hippy Dippy panels. That's a while. That's 5-6 years ago at this point. So, but all right, I got to wrap up here. We only have an hour today. I go into work. Womp, womp. I got to leave for work around 2 o'clock. So, go downstairs, take the garbage out before I go. I'm going to try to stream Monday, Tuesday to YouTube. It'll be YouTube only because I'll have to use my phone. So I'm going to try to do that. Come Wednesday, Thursday, I'll be in a hotel. So maybe I'll do some quick streams from the hotel. But I'll be on vacation, a little mini vacation with my son. So, and my wife. She would have probably been pretty pissed off if I didn't mention that my wife was. That's just me and my son. We're leaving her here. So, but it should be fun. I'm looking forward to this week. My work week's gonna suck. So if you see me tomorrow night and I'm like this, welcome to Norman America Show, and I'm gritting my teeth, you'll know I had a bad work day. Spiro, thanks so much for the 20. Says, have a good day, Rob. Thanks for another good chat. Absolutely. And thanks for adding some other side of it because, like, I have to admit that I'm a layman. I don't know the ins and outs of much of this AI stuff. Going anywhere fun? Yeah, we're going to the Akron Zoo, and then there's a PBS show called The Wild Kratts, and it's about these two guys, Chris and Martin Kratts. They've been doing kid shows since the 90s. They did that show Zoom It's animated now, but they're real people in real life, and it's all about animals. And so they bring animals on stage and stuff like that. So, am I free from Connor's Twitch sentence? I don't know. I have not checked my Twitch since I was suspended. I do not plan to stream to Twitch anymore because the problem is if you get banned on Twitch, that means anyone else that is streaming on Twitch will also get banned for having me on. Whereas if I just don't mess with Twitch anymore once my suspension is lifted, I don't have to worry when I do someone's panel or do a debate with someone to tell them, hey, you can't stream this if you're on Twitch because of blah, 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 blah. So the best thing to do with Twitch, as far as I'm concerned, is to never touch it again, which is my plan, which is a bummer, but that's what it is. So, all right, everyone, I should do a short today. I don't know if I have time. I should do a short though. But it probably won't get to it. So thank you so much, everyone. It was a fun conversation. I know it's not the normal political stuff that we talk about, but yeah, AI is inevitable when it comes to sort of the things like art and being able to do simple drawings like the stuff that you see that's on places like social media. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in shaming people that are using it. I think it's all baked in the cake, just like I wouldn't shame anyone that's using Google to search things and haven't personally gone to the library and researched stuff. So, all right. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll talk to you all soon. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow evening. And as always, have a good one.